Welcome to Scoop World Owners. Getting hot up in Ann Arbor. Jim Harbaugh had a press conference today. It did not go well. He was very much, I know nothing. I see nothing. I can't talk about nothing. Did not come out and say, I have no idea. I had nothing to do with it. I don't know what they're talking about. Was a pretty hot seat up there. It was about a 15-minute deal. Obviously, the media almost had no questions about Purdue. Purdue will be an absolute butt kicking this week by Michigan, but they had a lot of questions about everything that's going on, the contract situation, and he was non-committal on basically everything. So he is in a tough spot. Obviously, he has to go do his press conference every week, but I think going forward until he's gone, this is going to be how it's going to go. People are going to try to fish for stuff. He's going to deny everything or no comment everything, and there's just not going to be much going down. But with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to break down a little bit of the Wisconsin film. We're going to get ready for Rutgers, but the Harbaugh stuff is crazy. There was a report about an opposing Big Ten coach telling another coach that the ball boys were tipping plays, put them, if they got a ball under their arm, they lift it up in the air, it's a pass, under their armpit, it's a run. So the thumbnail tonight is obviously a photo of Jim Harbaugh being a ball boy back when he's a 14-year-old, because honestly, maybe he learned from the best. Maybe he learned from Bo Schembechler. We're going to get into that tonight. Nevada, it never stops. Jim Harbaugh's press conference, we both watched it. Went about exactly how I'd expected. A lot of media people attempting to pry information out. A lot of, I can't discuss this, or it's university policy that I can't discuss this, or I'm here to talk about Purdue. I'm laser focused on Purdue, blah, blah, blah. I'm recharged from the bye week. A lot of pablum. Again, there's nothing more worthless in the universe than a head coach's press conference, unless it's like Mike Gundy or someone who's actually entertaining. Most of these coaches' press conferences absolutely suck. They're vanilla. They're boring. They don't tell you anything, but they try to act like they tell you something, but they generally don't tell you anything. What was your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh's press conference today? It probably went exactly as you expected it to go.
Well, I think what people have to do yourself a favor and go back and watch Jim Harbaugh's press conferences when this first stuff came out with the NCAA. The first time, now you understand,
Yep.
Michigan's under NCAA investigation already. They're under NCAA investigation for improper contact and benefits during the COVID period, and then he's got a level 1 violation for lying to the NCAA. That's on the record. That's not speculation. That's not hypothesis. That's not Ryan Day had his brother do the private investigation firm, jobber. These are all facts. So that's that's why he was suspended early this year on this self-suspension that the NCAA did not accept as the total punishment for lying to the NCAA. So he's under the cloud of that already. And during those times, man, he was absolutely defiant when he was out there. He was just brash and, this is nothing. It's a cheeseburger. It's rolling through it. Today, man, he looked skittish. He looked skittish. Yeah. You can tell this was his demeanor was completely different. And he's clearly rattled by the whole thing. And as we've been unwrapping the onion on this thing. You've got the Stallions thing, you've got the videoing thing, you've got the advanced scouting things, which are all the violation stuff. But you still have the Weiss stuff that hasn't come out. What was going on with Weiss that caused him to have the gambling cookies, to have the account at the daily fantasy and gambling site, to have the 50-plus hours of Ohio State practice footage? I mean, there's so many different dimensions to this thing that every day it gets better and better and better and deeper and deeper and deeper for Michigan. And what I would say to fans though that are out there that are expecting it to all happen, I mean, the way it's going to happen is a little at first and then all at once. That's the way it's going to go down. It's not so if you're just tuning in every 12 hours expecting the hammer of Thor to fall on them, it's like sometimes these things take a little bit of time to stuff, but it's coming, man. It's coming and it's going to be bad. And there's just no way around it. It is the trending topic on sports radio across the country. It doesn't matter. This is not just an Ohio State thing. It's not just a Big Ten thing. It's an every conference thing. It's an every media thing. Everybody's digging. Everybody's coming out with stories. It's a daily barrage, and it's not going away. And the deeper Michigan gets into the season, the worse it's going to get, and the pressure's building.
Yeah, like you said, it's very astute of you, and honestly, it's how a lot of these things start. when it first comes out, when the allegations seem kind of shallow, it's defiance. It's absolutely had no idea about it, no clue about it. But as these organizations, these forensic guys, the NCAA, they get their tentacles into it. They dig a little deeper or a lot deeper. As these investigative journalists get in there, as sources start talking to media, again, it's been hilarious how the Wall Street Journal's breaking stuff, the Detroit Free Press is breaking stuff, Sam Webb from the 247 Michigan site is breaking stuff. Because Harbaugh, again, I've said this every single night. He has a lot of enemies at Michigan. It's not like, he's like this he's not Bo Schembechler, who had enemies, and Woody Hayes, who had enemies. Like, these guys, like, when they're abrasive, they act like a-holes. And just being like the football coach, not everybody is going to love you, and sometimes, when you're that dude, when you're, the top dog, you're the football coach, you might rub some guys the wrong way. You might not give them the time of day when they think that they should deserve to be stroked. Maybe it's because they've given a lot of money. Maybe it's because everybody else recognizes how important some of these mega donors are. But like, that's not really how these football coaches work. These football coaches, they're kind of nose to the grindstone. What have you done for me lately? If you're not writing me a check like this month, I don't care about you. If you're not a 5-star recruit, I don't care about you. So there's ancillary people sometimes are mega donors that feel like they don't get the professional love and service that they feel like they deserve. And to me, man, I just, I feel like when you go through all this, you build enemies. And again, that's why there's a law. It's a really leaky ship up in Ann Arbor. Like, all these people are singing like canaries because they like seeing mighty Jim Harbaugh, who has had 2 back-to-back really impressive seasons and is on the verge of a mega extension. They like seeing him rattled. They like seeing they want new leadership. They want a new guy. I think that's just kind of how, again, it's Game of Thrones. They want the Red Wedding. They want all these guys to get murdered in Schembechler Hall. And I think it's arcing that way. I mean, I can't imagine he's back there next year at the rate that everything's happening. If the allegations are true, again, this is when you're that head coach. And that was a good question that was asked at the press conference today is, do you believe that the head coach is responsible, being at the top of the food chain, is responsible for absolutely everything? And he's like, yes, or he's like, or he said something like basically like, it was basically yes, but it was like, well, I think the answer to that and whatever. It was kind of like, of course, if you're the head football coach, everybody under the umbrella that you hire or you have a hand in hiring, you're responsible for. So I thought that was a fascinating answer because that was like one of his only non-answers. Nevada, they got Purdue this week. Do you just expect like a total domination? Because I just think that this thing is, it's gonna galvanize the team. I'm sure that the players are sick of hearing about all this. I'm sure that they can't wait to get on the field and just go take it out on poor little Purdue. But what are your thoughts on what Michigan's going to produce this Saturday versus the Boilermakers?
Well, I think they're going to produce a lot of ball boys that are out there holding the ball up with either the left hand or the right hand, because that was allegation. Now, I know the coach that made the allegation on this, and they really believe this. They really believe that the ball boys on the side are listening for the play calls. That they're holding the ball up with the left hand or holding the ball up with the left hand if it's a pass, holding the ball up with the right hand if it's a run, and they really believe it. Now, I don't know if it's true. I don't have video of that one to back that one up. We have, stallions on the sideline, literally sitting in the chair of cheer with with the DC, with the OC, with Harbaugh jumping up and down and whispering in their ear. Doing this. We don't have this one on the ball boy yet, but they absolutely believe that that's a thing. And I just thought it was an interesting, you just get yourself into the mind of Harbaugh and kind of go, do you believe Harbaugh is cut from the cloth that he is an win at any cost, do whatever advantage you can to win, and the ends justify the means? Is that consistent with his personality? And I think the answer to anybody, yes, it's clear.
Absolutely.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
So do I believe that he could do this with the ball boys? Yeah, I believe he could do it with the ball boys. I believe that for him, he would take any assistance. I mean, look at what he did with Stallions. I mean, this guy came out of nowhere. This guy's just a super fan, some Marine, out there in Camp Pendleton. That's like, he's a little Marine with a big dream. I mean, how did this guy with basically no experience or nothing get a full-time job for the Michigan Wolverines? I mean, this guy wasn't some, you've lived the life of the grad assistant or the thing,
Yeah.
like getting a $55,000, you would have killed to be paid $55,000.
Oh my God.
$55,000.
I'd have felt like a millionaire. I mean, they paid us 17 grand a year as GAs. So, I mean, I was just lucky I played in the league for a few years. So I had some coinage, but like there are guys that are GAs, man, and they can't make rent. They're taking out loans. Like, I mean, it's, cause you're betting on the come that you're going to get a full-time gig and all that deal. And, God bless them. But like, I was doing it and I was a different world just cause I had played in the league for a few years. So I had some cash, but like, those guys, man, I mean, but 55 G's, like, that's an important, like, assistant. Like, I mean, that's like, you got to remember, like, Zach Smith in 2012 was making 150 grand, and he was a full-time wide receivers coach, recruiting, everything. So this guy's making like a third of that, and he's not even on the road, and he's basically an entry-level coach. So he had to have had some importance, because most guys, they start off as interns, and if you go to 55, you're bringing something to the table that's significant to the program. But continue, Nevada.
Yeah, no, I just think that, as they kind of go through this, do I think that there's some legs to the ball boy story? There might be, man. I'm telling you, there's so many different elements on this story that we've talked about the gambling cookies, we've talked about the practice footage, we've talked about the stringers and how they were paid, we've talked about the budget, we've talked about the cash flow Venmo money for T-shirts between Jay Harbaugh and Stallions, and also, I mean, like, there are just so many dimensions of the story that I don't even think have been fully vetted. That when they do publish the report, when they publish the the equivalent of the Warren report on this one, it's going to be this is going to be a bestseller. This is going to be great, and it's going to be kind of like it's going to be like Keystone Cops meet like Charlie Chaplin meet Inspector Clouseau, because this was the most inelegant cheating scandal, but it worked. I mean, it worked. I was listening to Rick Neuheisel today, and he's like, man, Gaddis was the Broyles winner, and then he went to Miami, and they got run in 1 year. It helps when you know what the defense is running.
Oh,
Everything
yeah.
works then, man. Everything works. Think back on that third down play last year against Ohio State. If they know that if they know the all-out blitz is coming, what play do you dial up? You can't.
No,
You can't go,
short out, not a slant.
a short out, not a
Yeah.
slant. You can't run a slant. You got to run a short out. And what they run?
Yeah.
They run a short out. Wow.
Oh, it was perfect.
That turned the whole game.
Yeah.
The whole game. That game was utter domination up to that point, because they knew what was coming, because they were cheating. You tell me it doesn't make a difference? Are you freaking kidding me? It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the whole game, man. Why do you think teams run play action? If disguising pass and run didn't make a difference, play action would never work. Instead, it's the most fundamental aspect of everything that every team does. Knowing that there's a blitz coming, you don't think they could dial up the quick out, and then then by gosh, the guy broke a tackle on Cam Brown, and that the rest is history. But no, they knew what was coming. That's why they did it. That's why the last two wins, certainly last year's win, absolutely vacant in my mind. Absolutely, Ryan Day gets a pass on it. Michigan was cheating. They got busted, and how will they do this year without knowing the play? It's going to change things for them. I mean, do I think it's going to change immediately in terms of how they hammer on Purdue or something like that? But no, but they've gotten used to it. It's like a crutch. When you get used to going out there and calling plays, you have your rhythm of calling offense and calling defense. When you know what the opposition's doing, it's going to change things. You watch Michigan, it'll feel different. It'll be palpable. I guarantee you, it'll be different, because they've been cheating so long that it's kind of ingrained in terms of what you're doing. And even if subconsciously they try to keep it the same, they won't be able to, because this is part of what they've been doing for 2 years now.
Yeah, and the thing you have to realize is, like, when you're Michigan, like, what really helps if you're using the ball boys or using the people, Ryan Day being on the sideline calling plays. Because if you have a guy up in the booth calling plays, there's not really, you can't see the guy, you can't hear him saying, hey, we're gonna go, we're gonna go, 052, China spot or whatever. Like what, I mean, there's certain things that that sound like passes, or certain things that sound like runs. Like most numbers in football numbering systems, if it's below 50, it's usually a run. If it's above 50, it's usually a pass. And not every team's different. We had runs that were 86 and 88 and stuff in certain schemes I played in. But in general, it's pretty simple to pick some of this stuff up. And again, it's like the thing I always talk about every year. There's a lot of transition at the bottom of coaching staffs, and it's not the top 10 guys. A lot of times it's interns moving, GAs moving. A guy like Matt Garrini, who's the DC for Indiana, he moves on. He might know someone on Michigan's staff. They might swap information, might swap playbooks. Again, when you're in the Big Ten with the transition, you always have to assume that the opposing team has your playbook. Because again, they're not hard to find. They're all digital. Most grad assistants and QCs, they copy the hard drives before they leave. That's just kind of how it is. I mean, I think every GA I ever knew did that. And, you take your playbook with you, you take everything with you. So, I think that as guys move on, there's a lot of data transfer that can happen. There's a lot of, it's kind of like, the Morse codes can be easily decrypted if you don't change them up every year a little bit. We have a super chat. OSU Bucks 08. Appreciate you, my man, for the 5. Always felt Day may have chosen Kyle over Brown to keep Marvin's room happy. Marvin / the room happy. Marvin's room's a Drake song, so that's cool. Any chance Day sees a chance to play Devin and rest Kyle if he can't go? Well, that's really hard considering I think Devin's in worse shape than Kyle. I don't know if Ryan can make this move significant or just off of making Marvin happy. I think that Kyle is probably he has an extra year in the system, so he was probably a little more comfortable. And we've seen when Devin's gotten in, he's been very boomer bustish. But I think that I don't know, Nevada. I think this is tough because I feel like Devin Brown is probably out this week again because he had a pretty significant ankle injury. But I know Kyle's dinged up too. Again, this is the Big Ten. It's tough. These guys are yanking on their ankles and twisting them. So, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, said it before. Go back to the play that Devin Brown got hurt. He didn't get hurt during the play. He got hurt when he was laying on the pile, and the guy Kimura his leg and twisted his ankle.
Yeah,
Dirty play by Penn
Kimura.
State.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was really bad. So I agree with you. I think that Devin's probably a little bit behind Kyle from an injury standpoint right now. As for that, look, I thought at the beginning of the year that Kyle would take the first snap, but that Devin would ultimately beat him out and take the last snap. Obviously injuries and other things, kind of change things. But I think Kyle's been pretty good. I think Kyle's been pretty good.
No.
And the thing that's most encouraging for me about Kyle is, he had a terrible first half against Wisconsin. He did. He had a terrible first half, 3
Yeah.
turnovers. Can't do it. But you know something? He came back in the second half, gutted it out, played well. Same thing against Notre Dame. Had a great second half against Notre Dame. I mean, the fact that he's able to kind of get it together, collect himself, and play better in the second half. I mean, to me, that's the mark of a winner and a guy that I want to have as our quarterback. So, I am not unhappy about where he is. I think that we just got to accept the fact that he's a young quarterback, even though he's 8 games in his career. That's not a lot of games. I mean, Sam Hartman has played 275 games in college football or something like that, and Kyle's got 8. So it's like we have to be patient with him. And when they give him a clean pocket, when he can step up into those throws, man, he guns it. He guns it. He puts it on time and on target. If he just gets a little wonky when he starts to drift out of the pocket. We've talked about his pocket. His pocket presence is really not good, and that's one of the things that they've got to work on with him because he takes the snap and then he drifts back even like he's coming out from under center and he ends up 10, 11 yards back and he's forcing himself right into the line of fire with those speed rushers, and he's not comfortable enough just to step up and slide around in the pocket and stay there and stay focused with his eyes down the field. So got to get better. But I'm not unhappy with Kyle. I'm not unhappy with Kyle. I will go on. I think we can win with Kyle. I think we can run the table with Kyle.
Yeah, I agree. Again, like you look at the guys that run the table within the past, the past two memorable championships. I mean, Craig obviously had a great run, but nobody's picking Craig over basically any of the quarterbacks we've had, really since Troy Smith. And but he was a winner, and he had a great defense, and he did just enough to beat the Miami Hurricanes, a team that was better than probably any team we've played in the last 20ish years. And then Cardell, Cardell's a guy that people were nervous when he took over. He had a magnificent stretch. And then, the next year he kind of crashed back to earth and became Cardell again, and JT Barrett became the starter again. So, again, if you're the quarterback at Ohio State, there will always be a segment of fans that hate you. You just got to deal with it. You got to block it out. Again, like Cardell Jones won the national championship and was undefeated as a starter. By the middle of 2015, people hated him. They wanted JT Barrett. And then JT Barrett became the starter. And then by 2017, people couldn't wait for Dwayne Haskins to become the starter. They hated JT Barrett. Dwayne Haskins is a better thrower. He should be the quarterback, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, if you're the quarterback for any length of time at Ohio State, people are going to clamor for the backup. This is how it is. And I think that that's just the natural progression. I think that he's been good. I'd say he's probably been like a B-ish to B-ish, but he's beaten everybody. He's undefeated. He's played two fantastic teams with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's really coming on. They waxed Pitt really well. They ended USC's run. Penn State is second in the nation in sacks. Really tough defense. That was a massive game. And then you go to Camp Randall the next week, which is a very tough place. And honestly, Rutgers is like a sneaky team because as much as people hated Greg Schiano and remember how bad that 2018 defense was, they still won the Rose Bowl and went 12-1. So I mean, 12-1 is usually a pretty good year in most people's minds that aren't complete lunatics. But Greg Schiano is a fantastic head coach. He took Rutgers, which was a dead corpse on the side of the road, and he has them bowl eligible after 8 games. They're like 6-2, and he's a guy that can recruit a program that basically there's not a lot of tradition there. There's not much, and Chris Ash, who's a great guy, drove that thing right. I mean, he drove that Ferrari. It wasn't a Ferrari, it was like a Yugo, but he drove that Yugo right off the cliff into the ravine like Thelma and Louise because he made Rutgers the worst program in America. They were like 130th in the nation in offense his first year there in 2015, and Schiano's resurrected it and made him pretty good. Nevada, we're going to go into a little film here. Talk a little bit about Jim Knowles' defense because again, I know like everyone likes to talk about the quarterback and all the bad stuff going on, but our defense, the pressure packages, I think have been fantastic from Jim Knowles. Jack Sawyer, who everybody in the universe hates, and just got named, Player of the Week by Jim Knowles, and has been really like underrated. Talk a little about some of these guys and what these guys are doing. Because like Jack, it's funny, because Jack, I think he's got 1 sack on the year. People are obsessed with sacks, but it's kind of like. And he's not near the echelon of Sean Springs. It'd be like if people said, well, Sean Springs sucks because he doesn't have any interceptions. Because his last year he didn't have any picks, because he didn't, because he was just that good. But Jack has been ultra disruptive in the running game. Him and JT have been, I think, really good at defensive end. And frankly, I don't think people are giving these guys much time to pass rush because they know that, these guys are going to get by their tackles. But talk a little bit about the pressure packages Jim Knowles is doing.
Well, a lot to unwind here. First of all, going to give you a number, 3.95 yards per play. Now, to put that in perspective, under 4 yards per play for a defense is just obscene. It's up there with like the great defenses of all time, like best in the past 15 years in college football, that type of thing. And that's where Ohio State is number 1 in the country, 3.95 yards per play, which is just a crazy, crazy stat. Second stat I'm going to give you, and we talked about this on the board today. Ohio State has 16 sacks so far through 8 games. You know who also has 16 sacks through 8 games? Georgia. Georgia playing a much weaker schedule than Ohio State. 16 sacks. Georgia and Ohio State are similarly ranked in total defense and in scoring defense. And obviously Georgia's the 2-time defending national champion. But, sometimes sacks, and I've been guilty of this myself, sacks, sometimes are a little bit of a misleading stat. If you're fundamentally sound, you don't need those types of negative plays to kind of make the difference for you. And the key has been the simulated pressures that Jim Knowles is running. Jim Knowles, we've talked about this a lot. Jim Knowles will present 6 at the line, but then only rush 4. And he's doing it. Sometimes he's dropping the 2 guys in the middle. Sometimes he's dropping 2 guys on one side. Sometimes he's dropping both the ends into the flats, into the slat patterns. But what he's doing is when he presents 6, it immediately changes everything for the offense. So the offense now immediately goes to hot routes. The quarterback knows he's only going to have a few seconds, or he believes he's only going to have a few seconds, and he immediately goes to his hot read. That's where he's going with the ball. And then Ohio State drops out of it and only rushes 4. So you're getting you've affected the offense with all the benefit of rushing 6, and you're only rushing 4. And if you want to know the singular reason why this defense has been so good this year and why it's been such a profound difference between this year and last year, it's that. It's that, and the fact that they were doing. I mean, heck, we talked about this week. This week, Tyleek Williams has been an unbelievable play and knocked a pass on the line. If that pass goes through, Jack Sawyer's there to pick it because he dropped off the line and he probably walks into the end zone for 6. So, running some great things up front. That's really the untold story of what's going on with the defense this year, and really something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to break this down real quick. So here they're running a double twist game. Steele, he does kind of a slight bluff. He really doesn't sell it too hard. Tommy is reading the back, so he's got him man to man. If the back stays in and doesn't flare, he's going to rush. Otherwise, he's going to flare with him. He's going to do what they call peel. But here you're going to see a really nice twist game. So JT is what they call the penetrator. They call him the looper. That's my call. So 2, JT goes first. JT's job is to get upfield and kill the guard and eat up the tackle so that Mike Hall can wrap around and get the sack. At the top, Jack's doing the same thing with Tyleek. 2 steps, pick the guard. The only difference is if this guy stays in, you're going to have Tommy coming, and then you're going to have Tyleek coming around, which would be fantastic. But, you see the back, he flares. So Tommy recognizes that. He's got him in man. You got press man at the bottom right here. Again, nosed up, doing a great job. But again, JT does a great job eating up this tackle. And, the funny thing is JT has probably the best spin move in the nation. He doesn't use it a lot because he's not allowed to, but he spins out of this. And this guy, this is like one of the most egregious holds I've ever seen. So, I mean, he literally, you can see the arm grabbing JT's jersey, but, he still does his job, and he basically takes 2 blockers. And Mike Hall, who runs like a defensive end, is 280, 275-ish. He affects the throw, So when you're this quarterback, and all of a sudden you see big Mike Hall come in, you kind of tense up a little bit, and it's a bad throw. This guy. This is a wide open throw, but again, you see the pressure affect the throw. And this quarterback, he's obviously not great, but again, that's something that it's not a sack, it's not in the stat sheets, but. When you see Mike Hall running at you and he runs probably a 4.7-ish and he's coming full steam, like you tense up and you affect the quarterback. Sometimes it's about just affecting the quarterback. But again, that's the beauty of some of the stuff that we do, some of the looks that we show. I'm going to find some more third down looks as we talk about it. But, I get into more of how do we affect the quarterback than just purely sacks or purely whatever, because we do – we run a really fundamentally sound structure on defense in terms of the pass rush. And it's not just, hey, you guys go out, do whatever you want, freelance, spin move, stay out of your lanes. I mean, again, watch NFL football. You watch NFL football, they let all those guys get loose, and then you see these quarterbacks just run all over creation, convert, prolonged plays. Like you watch Pat Mahomes, man, and again, I think that the Chiefs O-line gets away with more holding than maybe anybody in the universe, but they people lose contain on him all the time because they rush inside. Losing contain basically is like if you come inside the tackle and you're not setting the edge anymore. And Jim Knowles is crazy about cage rushing and keeping these guys in the pocket because it helps the coverage out when these guys aren't able to break, contain, and create and do the scramble drill type thing. And I think that it's just good fundamental defense. It's not as sexy as 15 sacks. And again, I don't think that we have a Chase Young because we don't have a Chase Young. Chase Young's, maybe had the most prolific, season we've ever had in 19 when he was just dominant. And Baron Browning, if you guys check the NFL stats, he had 2 sacks history for the Broncos versus Mahomes in that huge upset of the Broncos and the Chiefs. We had some dudes on that defense. So, do I think that we have you know, maybe not equal talent to that 19 team, but we're right there. We might be a shade under it, but that 19 defense is as talented as we've ever had. So, but Nevada, like, is there another step that we can get to? Because again, we really don't have any weaknesses. Because I mean, the pass defense was the big issue last year, and it's stepped up. I think Davison Igbinosun's been absolutely fantastic for that entire back end. And I think our front four is just more productive because we don't have guys that frankly aren't that great. Like we had a couple of guys that started up front, played a lot that weren't real productive, and now you replace them with Tyreek and Mike Hall, and now magically like we're just way better. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the next dimension, in my opinion, is maybe the emergence of Sonny Styles, like the real emergence of Sonny Styles, and maybe the Ransom injury forces them to play Sonny more because I think he's the great X factor on this defense. You know, you talked about this defense as being a fundamentally sound unit, and it sure is. They just don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't give up a lot of big plays. They haven't given up any big plays this year. I mean, again, what a transformation. But Sonny's that guy he's a big play guy. He's a guy, he's kind of like JTT, and he can make those big plays from the safety / linebacker spot. And, I know they're dialing some stuff up for him. I know they like what he can do, in the blitz packages. I know they like what he can bring in coverage. The age of the big hit coming out of the secondary is kind of being put the way of the dinosaur because if you make a big hit, there's a 90% chance they're going to throw a flag and maybe an 80% chance you're going to get a targeting and get an ejection. But he is a scary guy, running around out there in the backfield. And I think that he might be able to take this defense up to another level, and maybe we see it as early as this week.
Yeah, this is fantastic by Storm. He hits this. He's got the cadence. Mike Hall is a terror for centers to block one-on-one in the running game. So here he plays off of the reach block. Storm hits this and spooks these guys. Basically, they got his own.
Not Storm.
Oh, not Storm. Steel. Excuse me, Steel Storm. It starts with an S, and it's weird. Steel Storm.
Yeah,
so, anyways, Storm Chambers, Steel Chambers. I'm actually getting a dog named Storm, so that's got to play on my mind. Yeah. But anyways, he hits it, and Mike swims the center and gets a tackle for loss. And this is second and like a yard and a half, and they lose. They lose about a yard probably because this guy's a bull. But again, that's the beauty of Mike Hall. People, they wondered where this was last year, but like a play like this, and they got a nice close angle of it. The center is thinking, I got to step here, reach, combo. These two to these two. It's basically like these two are blocking these two. But when all of a sudden Steel Chambers hits it, like he has no help. So. The center, this is a tough block, man, because he's trying to come off the rock, get a yard, and, he has no help from this guard because these guys are comboing up here on Tyreek up to Tommy. So he's basically wound up at the last second because of this blitz. And, Mike's so quick, man. He swims over it. And this is just a great run block. This is a great run blitz by Jim Knowles, and Mike makes the play. Again, that's a little bit of a special trait because I mean not every guy is that cat quick like he is, and guys that are like that are absolutely miserable to go against. I'm telling you, like when you've got a guy like Mike Hall who can attack your off snap hand, get in the backfield. I mean he's so quick it looks like he's almost offsides. It's just a fantastic guy. And again, like something against Tron Vincent, John Cage, but like those guys aren't nearly as productive as the two guys we have inside now, and that's something that I thought was an upgrade. We lost 4 guys off of the defense that were big time starters with Ronnie and Tanner McAllister, and God bless all those guys. And I think Tanner's on the practice squad for the Browns. I think Ronnie, he's on the active roster for the Browns. The 2 D tackles aren't even in the league, so you replace those with 2 guys that potentially could be first round picks, and Mike Hall and Tyreek. I think Tyreek could definitely be a first round pick. Mike Hall just depends on what schematically. Mike's tough because he's so small that he's not going to fit every system. That being a 280-pound guy, he's not going to play for the Steelers. Who if you're a 3-4 team, you're not taking Mike Hall. Unless you play him at the end, because he can't play the nose. He's a little too short, a little too small. But for a 3 technique that can pass rush, he's fantastic. So we broke this down a couple of days ago, but it's worth breaking down again. Again, this is Jim Knowles. It's funny. Ryan Day talked about how we're going to start heating it up a little bit. and he brings the nickel blitz with Tommy, and our nickel gets a sack, which is absolutely fantastic. But again, like Jim Knowles has talked about how he's been holding stuff, holding stuff, holding stuff. You got Kenyatta's, you got Kenyatta dropping here. It's just a zone pressure. Again, you've only got, what do we got? Four. We've got five guys rushing. You've got Kenyatta dropping. So basically everyone's covered and you're bringing five, but you get a huge loss there on 1st and 10. Nevada, talk a little bit about what do you project seeing the rest of the season? And do you think Jim Knowles is saving a lot for Michigan?
Well, I mean, Michigan presents the unique challenge of having that mobile quarterback, and that's a huge challenge. That's a huge stressor for the defense, and I think for Ohio State, everything's going to be geared towards that. You can't overlook Rutgers this week. You got to try to survive. But if you can navigate the game against Rutgers, the rest of the schedule is really easy. And so
Yeah.
if you bet under 10.5 season wins for Ohio State, you're probably going to be out your money before the Michigan game, because I think the Buckeyes are definitely going to be heavy favorites to kind of run the table. But you got to know when to blitz. You got to know when to blitz, and you got to know when to dial up. You got to have a feel. And Knowles has had just an uncanny feel for when to blitz. I mean, he's been blitzing at just the right times. I mean, I can only think of a handful of plays this whole year where I feel like he's been kind of out schemed by the opposition. And again, to bring this full circle, the beginning of this, it's really going to help when Michigan doesn't know what our plays are going to be
Yeah.
before we call them. I mean, that's going to make a difference. So it's like, do I think that'll? Yes, that's going to make a difference. And you know, I think for Knowles, he's chomping at the bit to be able to get out there, make defensive calls, have the defensive calls signaled in, and not have you know, you know, you know, whatever Jay Harbaugh Stallions, whatever it is, grabbing the plays and calling them out to the offensive coordinator, because you know I think we got caught short on that a few times in the last couple of years. Not going to happen this year, and I think it's going to make a big difference. And if you're Ryan Day, you watch the ball boys too, because you just never know where it could be coming from. And I think let's put it this way: Ryan Day is fully aware of it at this point. So anything that gets caught at this point is Ryan Day's responsibility, because he knows they're
Mhm.
cheating. So now it's your job to make sure that their cheating can't work against you.
Do you think that, we always talk about, anomalies and things that really don't make any sense. Do you think that the difference in Michigan in the playoffs when they saw TCU and TCU just absolutely blew their doors off, ran them out of the gym? Uh, do you think it's specifically because Michigan didn't have their signs anymore?
Well, I mean, it brought to mind the famous Mike Leach fake playbook thing, or the fake
The fake
script
script.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take this too far afield of that, but the pirate was one of the great personalities in all of
Oh
college
yeah.
football history, and I loved that guy. I loved him at Washington
Oh,
State. I just thought he was just an underrated genius. But his for those people who aren't familiar with it, he basically put out a fake like script and left it on the thing, and had I believe it was Texas,
yep.
get the
Yep.
script and look at it and feel like they had his first 15 plays, and that they just roasted him, I think, for multiple touchdowns during that, because they were going to the wrong spots, thinking that they had the wrong thing, dialed up, and he took advantage of that. So look, it's spy versus spy, and now it's up to Ryan Day to kind of counter the stuff that's kind of been going on with Michigan for the past couple of years, and I think the games are going to get easier. I think the games are going. I know that Ohio State was completely frustrated the last couple of years. Felt like, man, Michigan was always in the right call against us, and now we know, now we know why. Now we know why Michigan has been such a statistical outlier against the first half spread, against the game spread, and specifically against the second half spread, where they've really outperformed. Um, Now I think you're going to see a regression to the mean. And what's that going to mean for Michigan? Well, it's going to mean they're not going to win as much. Watch, it'll happen.
Yeah. Totally agree. Final thoughts. Wrap this thing up. Again, I can't wait to see what this week's gonna peel back. I mean, I think that more is gonna break. NCAA is on the scene. rumored board of trustees meetings that were also denied last night. I think those are going to happen in secret. But your final thoughts on this and day one of Rutgers planning.
The gambling cookies on the Weiss computer are going to become the story, man. That will become the story going forward. I'm telling you, watch that one. Daily fantasy gambling account accessed and utilized by a current, or I mean, at the time, current Michigan football coach. Watch that one. That's gonna be the next big. That's gonna be the next big story.
I totally agree. And he's a coordinator to boot. So that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys being a part of this. BuckeyeScoop.com. It needs to be your new home for all of the latest and greatest on Michigan's turmoil, their troubles, their cheating, breaking stories. The Oracle has been the first guy on everything. He's a very, very well-sourced guy when it comes to the NCAA. So lucky for us, he's on our team. So we appreciate you guys. As always, if you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. You'll get a note when we go live. It's usually about 7 o'clock every night. Put your playoff rankings in the comments. I'd be interesting to see 1 through 4. I think a lot of people are projecting Ohio State at 1. I'd put Georgia at number 1 just because I feel like there's going to be that group that says, well, they're the 2-time defending champs. They're undefeated the last 2 years. Like, you know, I feel like that's going to be the prevailing notion. But easily, I think it could be Ohio State at number 1. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes down. Again, the first playoff rankings are almost worthless, but it'll be good fodder for us to talk about. Additionally, shout out where you guys are watching from. I love seeing where you guys are watching the show from. Again, appreciate all the support of the channel. Send it to your friends, your family. Click the likes. As always, those are huge. So you guys that are in here, click like on your way out the door. We thank you guys so much. That being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.